O glorious Saint Anthony of Padua, tender servant of Christ and steadfast friend of the afflicted, we turn to you in our hour of deepest need. You who comforted the sorrowful, lifted the fallen, and guided the hopeless, incline your heart toward us now. Let this prayer be the path through which our cries reach heaven. For with you beside us, nothing remains truly lost. Not hope, not faith, not the dreams hidden within our tears. In this sacred silence, draw near to those who seek you. Listen to the longings we dare not voice. Help us rediscover what feels gone. Healing of body and soul, peace in our homes, restoration of what was broken, and divine provision. Lead us gently back to grace. You are heaven's answer in moments of distress. Through your intercession, may the hand of God move swiftly to bring about transformation. If you sense Saint Anthony walking beside you even now, guiding your heart toward the miracle you've been waiting for, write in the comments, "Amen, I trust in God's timing." Saint Anthony, vessel of compassion and echo of divine truth, we call upon you not in despair, but in sacred confidence. Speak once more as you did to those lost in spiritual wilderness. May your words pierce the darkness and call light into every corner of our struggle. Stand with the mother longing for her lost child, the father crying out for work, the soul isolated by sorrow. Reach into what we cannot touch. You, finder of the lost, help us now find our courage, our joy, our trust in God again. You who heard even the softest prayers uttered in suffering, hear this one too. Plead before the throne of mercy for all who listen in this very moment, for those who carry unbearable burdens, who fear they are forgotten, who wrestle with shattered hope. For broken families, strained hearts, and bodies pleading for healing, let your intercession awaken divine favor. May heaven respond as you once did, with immediacy, with love, with power. Do not allow this sacred encounter to pass without grace. Let the person praying with us now feel your nearness, right where they are. Let them sense the shift, the divine stirring in the unseen. Saint Anthony, beg the Lord to act swiftly. This is not an ordinary moment. The miraculous is already unfolding. For the soul who dares to believe and holds on to the end. If something within you says, "This is for me," then proclaim it in the comments. Glory to God, I receive this miracle. The moment of desperation, when all seems lost. There are moments in life when the weight becomes too heavy and the silence of heaven feels unbearable. It's in these moments that the soul begins to cry, not just from the mouth, but from every fiber of its being. Have you ever stood in that silence wondering if God had turned his face from you? This is where Saint Anthony first meets the heart, right at the edge of despair. Not with noise, not with answers, but with presence. And sometimes that's what saves us. Saint Anthony of Padua was not only a great preacher or miracle worker, he was a man who understood suffering. He knew what it meant to feel invisible in a crowded world. That's why he comes so gently, so humbly, to those of us who feel forgotten. If you feel like your prayers have hit a wall, know this: Saint Anthony is already kneeling beside you. He sees what you've lost, and he's already looking with you. Not just for things, but for the part of your soul you left behind in pain. The miracle begins not when the answer arrives, but when you remember you are not alone in the waiting. That's what this mystery teaches us. It's not just about recovery, it's about rediscovery. Perhaps you haven't really lost that opportunity, that relationship, that peace. Perhaps God has simply hidden it for a while, so you would learn to search for Him first. And who better to guide that search than Saint Anthony? There was once a woman who had lost not only her job, but her will to try again. Every door closed, every friend disappeared. Bills stacked up like mountains. She found herself on the floor one night, whispering a prayer to Saint Anthony for urgent help. Just a whisper, but heaven heard. The next morning, a friend she hadn't seen in years called with a job offer. Coincidence? No, just God, through Anthony being God. You might be thinking, that won't happen to me, but let me tell you, Saint Anthony doesn't pick favorites. He picks faith. He responds not to noise, but to hearts that still dare to believe. That's why this Catholic prayer for miracles isn't just something you say. It's something you live. Speak it, breathe it, trust it. You've come this far for a reason. Stay a little longer. The shift could be closer than you think. This prayer for desperate cases isn't about begging. It's about aligning. You align your soul with a saint who has already walked the road you're on, and you allow his compassion to reach into your life like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Let your voice join thousands who, like you, once believed nothing could change until everything did. Saint Anthony isn't just a helper of lost items. He's a finder of lost hopes. Imagine walking through your home, frantic, looking for something you can't find. You check under the bed, inside drawers, retrace your steps. Then, in a whisper, you say, "Saint Anthony, help me." And suddenly, there it is. Now imagine doing that, not for keys, but for peace. For your child's safety, for your finances. This emergency prayer for financial help works because it invites heaven into the smallest cracks of daily life. And here's the real secret. Miracles don't always look like fireworks. Sometimes they're quiet. A peace that suddenly replaces panic. A bill paid at the last second. A child who calls after months of silence. A wound that doesn't sting like it used to. This is the unfailing prayer to Saint Anthony, not because it guarantees comfort, but because it guarantees presence. And presence is the beginning of restoration. Saint Anthony teaches us that nothing truly holy is ever permanently lost. That includes your dignity, your joy, your future, even if it's been years, even if you've given up. One whispered prayer that works instantly can become the spark that ignites change. But don't mistake speed for timing. God moves in perfection, not always fast, but always right. Let Saint Anthony teach your heart to trust that divine pace. You may feel like you're praying from a place of emptiness, but that's where the holiest prayers rise from. A full heart rarely reaches as high as a broken one. So if you're empty, rejoice. You're ready. This miraculous prayer to Saint Anthony isn't about having the right words. It's about having the right surrender. Be still. He is working. Stay with this mystery. Stay in the prayer. Let this moment of desperation become the doorway to something sacred. Let it remind you that your miracle begins, not when the world changes, but when your heart believes it can. And that belief, it starts now. If your spirit feels this hope awakening, comment, "Glory be to God, I am not alone." The silent battles. When no one knows you're struggling, there's a unique kind of suffering that lives in silence. The kind where everything seems fine on the outside, but inside, your soul is barely holding on. It's the tear you wipe before anyone sees it. It's the weight you carry so well that no one ever asks if you're okay. Saint Anthony understands this kind of pain. He doesn't just intercede for what is visible. He walks right into the hidden corners where no one else dares to look. And in that silence, miracles start to stir. Many who turn to this most powerful prayer to Saint Anthony aren't looking for applause. They're looking for air, for relief, for a reason to keep going. And that's where this second mystery begins. It's not about the dramatic, it's about the daily choice to believe that God is still moving, even when everything around you is still. Saint Anthony doesn't knock loudly. He enters gently, just like healing does. Imagine the single mother working 3 jobs, coming home to an empty fridge and a stack of unpaid bills. She doesn't cry for show. She cries because she's poured out every drop of herself, and still, it's not enough. One night, she whispers a prayer to Saint Anthony for financial breakthrough, not because she sees the answer, but because she believes there has to be one. And by morning, a check she'd forgotten was coming lands in her mailbox. Or picture the elderly man sitting alone at his kitchen table, staring at the seat where his wife used to sit. The silence is louder than any scream. He doesn't know how to pray, but he remembers hearing once that Saint Anthony helps those who are alone. So he speaks her name out loud, followed by, "Saint Anthony, bring me peace." And something shifts. Not outside, but inside. For the first time in weeks, the silence doesn't feel like a curse. That's the power of this healing prayer to Saint Anthony. It doesn't require eloquence, just honesty. A whisper is enough, a breath, a pause. What matters is that you bring your true self into the presence of heaven. You don't need to have it together. Saint Anthony is drawn to pieces, because only what's been broken can be made whole again, and only what's surrendered can be lifted up. Some of the greatest battles happen in the mind: anxiety, fear, shame, regret. These are not things you can show on a scan, but they are wounds nonetheless. Saint Anthony's intercession is not limited by flesh and bone. He reaches into the very thoughts that torment you, the sleepless nights that steal your strength. His prayer for desperate cases is not passive, it's active. It goes to war for your soul. You're not weak for feeling weary. You're not broken beyond repair. You're in a battle, and like any soldier, you need reinforcement. That's what this prayer that works instantly becomes when spoken in faith. A spiritual shield, a holy defense. The moment you say, "Saint Anthony, help me," you've already begun to win, not because of your strength, but because of God's. Sometimes the miracle is not that the storm ends, but that you discover you're stronger than the wind. That's what this powerful Catholic miracle prayer unlocks. Not just a change in circumstances, but a change in you. The kind of change that turns pain into purpose, wounds into wisdom, and loneliness into strength. You are not where you are by accident. There's something God wants you to hear right here. And yes, there will be days when you feel like giving up again, but that's when you return to this mystery, to this sacred rhythm of prayer, to Saint Anthony, who never stops searching, not just for what's lost, but for the ones who've forgotten how to search. He carries the lamp. You only need to follow the light. This holy prayer for impossible requests is your map in the dark. There's a reason why you're still listening, why your heart hasn't given up entirely. It's because deep inside, hope is still alive. Even if it's small, that spark is enough. Enough for God to work with, enough for Saint Anthony to act. You're not at the end, you're at the turning point. The impossible prayer that works is not just heard, it's answered when the soul surrenders completely. So whatever you're hiding, whatever you've carried in secret, this is the place to let it go. No judgment, no shame, just grace, ready to meet you. Your miracle doesn't begin with others, it begins with you. With your choice to keep praying even when it feels pointless. With your decision to believe even when you can't see. That's what unlocks the blessing. Stay here. Stay praying. Don't rush. Don't quit. You're closer than you know. If this prayer spoke into your silent struggle, comment, "I believe something good is coming." The power of intercession. When Saint Anthony prays for you, there is a profound truth that few people realize. When Saint Anthony prays, heaven listens. His intercession is not just symbolic, it is active, alive, and incredibly powerful. He doesn't just offer comfort, he presents your case before the throne of God with the urgency and tenderness of someone who knows exactly what you're going through. That's what makes this prayer to Saint Anthony for urgent help so sacred. It is more than words. It is a divine collaboration. In our weakest moments, when we feel too tired to pray or too lost to speak, Saint Anthony steps in and lifts our petitions with his own voice. He takes our whispered cries and turns them into radiant requests bathed in faith. That's why people around the world call this the unfailing prayer to Saint Anthony. Not because it works like magic, but because it channels relentless grace into places we thought were forgotten. This isn't just hope, it's divine momentum. Sometimes we think our prayers are too small, too selfish, or too late. But not to Saint Anthony. To him, every cry of the heart is sacred. Whether you're asking for healing, forgiveness, or provision, he listens with the ears of heaven. That's why when we say the miracle prayer today, we're stepping into something eternal, something ancient, and yet freshly burning with power. Miracles didn't stop in the past. They just wait for faith to ignite them. There's a woman I know who struggled for years with infertility. She tried everything: doctors, diets, herbal remedies, tears. Nothing worked. Then one night, she knelt beside her bed exhausted and whispered, "Saint Anthony, if it is God's will, please intercede for me." 9 months later, she held a miracle in her arms. Coincidence? No. That's what the power of intercession looks like. Quiet, timed, transformative. And what about financial collapse? So many silently drown in debt, ashamed to ask for help. Saint Anthony doesn't just restore lost items, he restores lost dignity. A desperate man once prayed an emergency prayer for financial help after losing his job. Within days, an old friend reached out with a work opportunity. Not luck, not chance. Just a holy prayer for impossible requests answered in the most ordinary way. This is the paradox of faith. It feels fragile, but it's stronger than steel. When you turn your heart toward heaven with trust, even the smallest prayer becomes a tidal wave of divine action. And when that prayer is wrapped in Saint Anthony's intercession, it doesn't go unanswered. It may take time, but it will never be ignored. This is why we keep praying the prayer that works instantly, because we know who we're praying with. Saint Anthony's closeness to God came not from status, but from surrender. He lived with humility, walked among the poor, and loved deeply. That's why his prayers carry weight. He doesn't speak from pride, but from compassion. And that compassion is what floods into your life when you call on him. This Catholic prayer for miracles taps into a legacy of love that transcends centuries and brings healing into now. Have you ever felt like giving up right before the breakthrough? That's not a coincidence. It's spiritual resistance. Miracles often arrive the moment you refuse to quit. Saint Anthony knows how to pray through the tension. So if you're on the verge of letting go, don't. Say this prayer to Saint Anthony for family restoration, for your broken home, your distant spouse, your hurting child. Say it, and let heaven do the heavy lifting. One of the most beautiful truths about prayer is this: you don't have to carry it alone. When you can't find the words, Saint Anthony carries them for you. When your faith falters, he believes on your behalf. When you're out of strength, his strength becomes your bridge. That's why this impossible prayer that works has been passed from generation to generation. Because it holds, because it heals, because it's real. And no matter how long it's been, no matter how far you've strayed, you can start again right now. Saint Anthony's intercession is not based on your perfection. It's based on your willingness. All you need to do is whisper, "Help me." That's enough. That's the doorway. And once you walk through it, everything begins to shift. Your healing may begin today. Your peace may return tonight. Your breakthrough may already be unfolding. So let this powerful Catholic miracle prayer become your anthem, not just today, but every day. Let it guide you in the morning and cover you in the night. Speak it over your family, whisper it in your workplace, declare it when you're driving, cooking, or crying. Because when Saint Anthony prays, things move. Heaven responds. The impossible becomes possible. The power of intercession is not in its volume, it's in its faith. Speak less, believe more. Ask and then trust. Let go and then watch. The prayer has been spoken. Now let it echo in the heavens. If you believe Saint Anthony is interceding for you right now, type, "Thank you, Saint Anthony, for praying for me." The surrender of the soul, trusting what you cannot see. There comes a point in every believer's journey when logic no longer brings peace and control, no longer brings results. It's the place where we're called to surrender, not because we've failed, but because we're finally ready to let God take over. This is the most difficult act for the human heart, yet the most freeing one. Saint Anthony teaches us that surrender is not weakness. It's the beginning of divine strength. Letting go isn't passive, it's active trust. It's choosing to believe that even when we don't understand the plan, the one who wrote it is still good. This is where the miraculous prayer to Saint Anthony becomes more than a request. It becomes a declaration. You're saying, "I no longer carry this alone." And in that moment, heaven takes the weight from your hands and places grace in your heart. So many of us spend our lives holding on to things we were never meant to control. We grasp tightly to relationships, finances, health, outcomes, hoping that if we just do enough, we can force things into place. But surrender means releasing your grip. It means saying, "God, I trust you more than I trust myself." And Saint Anthony walks beside us in that letting go. There's a woman I once counseled who had been praying for her husband's return for years. Every day she said the prayer to Saint Anthony for family restoration. But nothing changed until she stopped asking and started surrendering. She prayed not, "Bring him home," but heal us both, even if it's not how I imagined. That same month, her husband reached out, not to resume the past, but to rebuild a new future. That's the kind of transformation surrender invites. You move from demanding outcomes to desiring alignment. You stop fighting for control and start flowing in peace. The holy prayer for impossible requests teaches us that God's version of healing might not match ours, but it will always be better. It might take longer, hurt deeper, or look different, but it will make you whole. One of the most powerful truths about surrender is that it doesn't require full understanding. It just requires full availability. Saint Anthony surrendered his life to God at a young age. He gave up comfort, position, and even his homeland to follow the Spirit. And in doing so, he gained everything. His surrender became the soil where miracles were born. Yours can too. It's okay to be scared of letting go. It's okay to feel uncertain. But fear is not your enemy. It's a sign that something important is at stake. That's why this prayer to Saint Anthony for urgent help speaks directly into our fear. It invites us to stop fighting in our own strength and rest in the arms of divine love. The battle is not yours to win alone. What would happen if you stopped trying to fix it and simply offered it? Your pain, your debt, your unanswered questions. What if you placed them on the altar of faith and said, God, I trust you with this mess. That's when miracles begin. Not when we have it all figured out, but when we finally admit we don't. That's the wisdom of Saint Anthony. Surrender isn't the end of effort. It's the redirection of effort. Instead of striving in circles, we begin to walk in steps of peace. We start to listen more, react less. We love better, fear less. This is what the prayer that works instantly really does. It shifts the burden from our backs to God's hands, and His hands are always steady. There's someone right now who needs to hear this. You've done enough. You've cried enough. You've tried hard enough. Now it's time to rest in surrender. Let Saint Anthony be your witness, your companion, your prayer partner. Let him carry your requests into the heart of God with a whisper that thunders in heaven. You don't have to know how it's going to work. You just have to know who is working. And the God who multiplied bread through Saint Anthony, who healed the broken through faith, who brought light into the darkest places, is still the same. This powerful Catholic miracle prayer is your invitation to trust like never before. Saint Anthony doesn't just teach us to pray, he teaches us to release, to unclench our fists, loosen our anxiety, and open ourselves to divine timing. That's where joy returns, not because everything changed outside, but because everything shifted inside. You begin to see delays as protection and detours as divine redirection. So breathe deep. You're not late, you're not lost, you're not too far gone. You're exactly where you're supposed to be for surrender to take root. And once it does, everything starts to bloom. Faith, peace, hope, even the miracle you thought had passed you by. Let Saint Anthony walk with you as you finally say, "I trust you, Lord." If this moment helped you release what you've been holding, write, "I surrender and believe in my miracle." Confidence in the miracle, believing before it arrives. There is a sacred confidence that rises when the soul finally understands God is not guessing. He's not improvising. He's orchestrating every detail with precision, purpose, and promise. This final mystery is about stepping into that confidence, not just hoping for a miracle, but expecting it. Not just praying for change, but walking like it's already done. That's the boldness Saint Anthony inspires. Too many people pray with fear instead of faith. They whisper requests, but secretly brace for disappointment. But this prayer to Saint Anthony asks you to shift, to speak as someone who knows their request is already in God's hands. That's where peace begins. Not in the results, but in the rest. The most powerful prayer to Saint Anthony isn't about desperation, it's about declaration. Faith is the evidence of things not seen, and miracles rarely knock on the front door. They come quietly, like seeds sprouting under the surface. That's why this prayer for desperate cases works. It waters your faith while heaven works behind the scenes. You may not see the shift, but you will feel it. And when you feel it, act like it. Live like it. Praise like it's already happened. There's a man who once prayed the prayer to Saint Anthony for financial breakthrough with tears in his eyes and no food on the table. But the next morning, he shaved, got dressed, and applied for work as if the offer was already waiting. Within the week, he had a job. That's what confidence looks like, believing God moves the moment faith does. And Saint Anthony walks with those who move with faith. When you pray this miracle prayer today, don't wait until things look better to believe. Decide now. Choose belief as an act of will, not emotion. The enemy wants you to doubt because he knows faith is your weapon. When you stand confident in prayer, you don't just resist fear. You attract miracles. Because heaven responds to trust like flowers to the sun. Confidence in miracles is not arrogance, it's alignment. You're not telling God what to do. You're aligning your heart with what He already wants to do. That's what makes this unfailing prayer to Saint Anthony so powerful. It clears your mind of doubt, your spirit of hesitation, and your heart of fear. And when the clutter is cleared, faith takes up residence. Someone listening right now has been praying for years. You've seen no progress, and it's tempting to give up. But Saint Anthony whispers to your soul, keep going. The miracle is near. It may not come how or when you expect, but it will come. That's the promise we anchor to. The impossible prayer that works reminds us that delay is not denial. Picture this. You write your request down, place it under your pillow, and every night you pray with Saint Anthony. Nothing flashy, just faithful repetition. And one day, something shifts. A phone call, a letter, a new opportunity. That's not magic, that's consistency meeting divine timing. That's the fruit of powerful Catholic miracle prayer. Faith doesn't remove challenges. It empowers you to walk through them unshaken. That's why when you pray the holy prayer for impossible requests, you don't expect ease. You expect God. You expect Him to show up, carry you, strengthen you. And that's more valuable than comfort. That's what builds legacy. That's what creates testimonies. And testimonies are contagious. When one person shares how Saint Anthony interceded for their healing, breakthrough, or restoration, it strengthens the faith of others. That's how the movement of miracles multiplies. So don't keep your answer silent. When it comes, and it will, share it. Your story is someone else's hope in seed form. There is no timeline on faith. There is only today, this moment, this breath. The prayer to Saint Anthony for urgent help is not locked in yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's fears. It's alive right now. Speak it with your full heart. Don't dilute it with doubt. Just pray, believe, and prepare to receive. It might come through someone you never expected, through a path you never noticed. God's creativity is limitless. That's why our trust must be fearless. Your miracle may not look like your plan, but it will look like God's love. Let Saint Anthony be your reminder. Nothing is too far, too broken, or too late for heaven. If Saint Anthony is the patron of lost things, then let him find your faith again. Let him bring back your childlike belief, your unshakable confidence, the kind that dances before the rain ends, the kind that thanks God before the door opens. That's what this prayer that works instantly calls you into. A new way of living full of holy boldness. You don't need to wait until your hands are full to feel blessed. Sometimes, just knowing your request is in the right hands is enough. You've prayed. You've believed. Now rest. Expect. Watch. Saint Anthony is still interceding, and heaven is still responding. If you're claiming your miracle with full confidence, comment, "It's done. I trust God completely." May the peace of Christ, which surpasses all understanding, descend upon your heart in this very moment. May every fear that has followed you be replaced by faith, and every burden be lifted by the hand of God. Let your spirit find stillness in the certainty that you are never alone. Saint Anthony walks with you, and heaven is already in motion. May your home be a sanctuary of divine light. Where division once lived, let reconciliation begin. Where emptiness lingered, let joy overflow. May this prayer become a shield around your household. May the presence of God fill every corner of your life with comfort, clarity, and courage. May your body feel the warmth of healing flowing through every cell. Infirmities, anxieties, and chronic pain, leave now in the name of Jesus. May Saint Anthony intercede for total restoration, not only of your body, but of your soul. You are a temple of the Holy Spirit, and healing is your portion. May your finances receive the touch of divine provision, debts be reduced, doors be opened. May wise opportunities arise and foolish decisions fall away. You are not created to merely survive, but to walk in abundance and stewardship. Let Saint Anthony guide your hands toward holy prosperity. May your relationships bloom in grace. Forgiveness rise where bitterness once ruled. May every generational wound be healed and every hidden tear be wiped away. May the prayer to Saint Anthony for family restoration become a living testimony in your life. Let love become your language again. May your faith deepen with every unanswered question. Let not knowing become your new source of knowing. Let mystery become sacred. May Saint Anthony teach you the beauty of trusting in what you cannot yet see. And may hope rise in you like the morning sun, strong, consistent, radiant. May miracles surprise you. May they not just arrive in crisis, but flourish in the ordinary. Let answered prayers come wrapped in peace, in people, in provision. May your testimony inspire others to believe again. Because your story doesn't end in waiting, it begins in wonder. May your nights become resting places of renewal. Let every tormenting thought be silenced. Let every heavy heart be cradled by divine love. May your sleep be safe, uninterrupted, and filled with holy dreams. For even while you rest, God works and Saint Anthony watches. May your past no longer hold you hostage. Regret, shame, failure, be released. You are not who you were. You are who God is making you to be. Let every step forward be covered by mercy and purpose. You are not behind. You are being prepared. May your voice grow bold with declarations of truth. May you speak life into your atmosphere. Pray without fear. Worship without hesitation. May Saint Anthony remind you daily, you were born for this moment, for such a time as this. May you walk away from this prayer transformed, not because your situation instantly changed, but because your soul has. Something inside you shifted today. And from this point forward, miracles will follow your steps like shadow to light. Heaven is closer than ever. Finally, may your heart never again question whether you're loved. You are. You always were. You always will be. Saint Anthony intercedes, but God answers. And his answer for you is grace. Receive it fully and live like it. What if this moment was the turning point you've prayed for? What if everything you've suffered through was preparing you for the breakthrough that begins today? Can you feel the shift happening inside you right now? You'll never be the same after this prayer. What is God asking you to believe again? Who is he calling you to forgive? What dream is he resurrecting in your spirit? Let this be the day you stop waiting for permission and start walking in promise. Because you're not leaving this prayer empty. What if the next door doesn't just open, but opens wide? Are you ready to step through it in faith? Saint Anthony has already spoken your name in heaven. Now it's time for you to speak your belief on earth. Say it, claim it, live it. You are part of something holy. And when you pray like this, you activate miracles. You awaken grace. You become a light in someone else's darkness. And the world changes because you believed. If this prayer touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs a miracle, a family member, a friend, a co-worker silently struggling. Let Saint Anthony's intercession reach them too, through you. Leave a comment below declaring what you're believing for. Whether it's healing, breakthrough, or peace, put it into words. Your comment might be the exact encouragement someone else needs to keep praying. Let your faith echo across the world. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We're creating a place where prayer is alive and miracles are expected. If this blessed you, imagine what's coming next. Stay connected, stay prayed up, stay expectant. And now, if your heart agrees, write Amen in the comments and share this prayer with 3 people who need divine help. Because blessings multiply when they're passed on. Let this prayer go further through you.